PhotoTune Basic Use.
Welcome to PhotoTune. Before we get started, let me give you a quick tour so you can understand the workspace. When PhotoTune first opens, you'll be presented with two previews of your image, one on the left and one on the right. PhotoTune works by showing you two versions of your image. All you do is simply click on which version you prefer. It's just like going to the eye doctor. It's a series of 6 simple comparisons that helps you to optimize the contrast, brightness, and remove color casts in your image. At the bottom of the preview window will be text for each step of the process that'll explain what you're looking at and how to make your decisions. Below that, there may be some step options depending on the step you have. It'll either be a pop-up or a slider that allows you to select the amount of difference between the two images you're comparing. In the bottom left-hand corner contains the step indicator, which tells you which step in the process you're working on. To the right is the toolbar. The first tool is the Select tool, which allows you to select which image is your favorite. To the right of that is the Pan tool, which allows you to move around within the preview area. And the right one is the Snapshot tool, which allows you to take a snapshot of your current favorite image. On the right-hand side is the Zoom tool. You can use it to zoom in on your preview. Then use the Pan tool to navigate inside the preview area. In the upper right-hand corner is the Help flyout. Select the Help flyout to access the user guide, as well as these video tutorials. You can also see the welcome screen for step-by-step instructions on how to use PhotoTune. You can turn off the sound that plays when you select images. You can also check for updates and display the PhotoTune About box, which tells you which version of PhotoTune you have, as well as your serial number. This is useful if you need to call technical support. Alright, let's get started. When you open PhotoTune, you'll start in the wizard mode. The wizard is a 6-step process which shows you two diametrically opposed options for your image. Simply click on whichever one looks better to you. It's just like going to an eye doctor. Let's walk through the wizard together so you can understand the steps. At the bottom, below the preview, is help or text, which will tell you exactly what to look at in each step of the process. However, after the first couple times of using PhotoTune, you'll have the wizard all figured out, and you'll be able to move through it very quickly. The first step adjusts the dynamic range, or the contrast range of your image. It's really adjusting how much white and how much black is in your image. So in our first comparison, the left-hand image has no adjustment to the contrast or dynamic range. The right-hand side has both the shadows and highlights adjusted. This means that there's real shadows, and if we look down here in the base of the wheels, you'll see that there's some real shadows, and there's some real highlights, so you can see real specular highlights on the engine cowlings and on the stripes across the top of the wing. In some cases, like this one, it may also appear that the color cast in the image with the contrast adjusted is greater. At this point, ignore the color in the image and really focus just on the brightness and contrast in the image. If you like the image on the right, make sure you have the Select tool selected and just click on whichever image looks better, the left or the right. You can also adjust the options used by going to the Dynamic Range pull down at the bottom and selecting either the Highlight Only option or the Shadow Only option. If you're using PhotoTune on a portrait image, sometimes using the Shadow Only option might be a good idea. However, in most images, using the On option, which will automatically adjust the highlights and the shadows, is going to be your best choice. 90% of the time, this is the option I'll use, and I'm going to click on the right-hand image because I like the increased contrast range. You notice as soon as you click on it that the two images change and we're now looking at a new variable. It tells us that we're now adjusting the brightness in the image. The image on the left is slightly darker than the original, and the image on the right is slightly brighter. You can adjust how large a difference there is between the two images by using the adjustment slider at the bottom. As I increase the amount of difference, you'll see that the image on the right becomes more bright and the image on the left becomes less bright. All I do is adjust the sliders until I see a density range in one of the images that I prefer. I think I like the image a little bit darker, so I'm going to click on the one on the left. Alright, now we're on step number 3. Steps 3 through 6 are all color adjustments. PhotoTune's patented process is quizzing us to help determine where a color cast is in the image. So the first comparison is a warm versus cool comparison. I'm just going to increase the slider to make the difference more obvious. Now keep in mind, in step 3, 4, and 5, all we're doing is determining the type of color cast, not the actual amount. So go ahead and adjust the slider so that there's a marked difference between the two images, and then click on whichever one looks better. Don't necessarily look for the image to be perfect in these 3 steps. You won't see the final adjustment until step number 6. So here there's a pretty big difference between the left and the right, and I think we can all agree the image on the right looks better. Now, on step 4, it's narrowing down where the color cast in the image comes from. I think the image on the left looks better, so I'm going to select it. Now, on step number 5, we're getting a lot closer. You can see the image on the right. It looks pretty good. Let's select that one. Now we're on step number 6. We've determined where the color cast in the image is. Now we just need to determine how much is required to correct it. You can use the amount slider at the bottom to adjust until you see an image you like the best. In this case, I like the image on the right the best. Things that I look at to make my judgment is I look at the highlights and the shadows and make sure that there's no color cast in them. So looking at the metal body of the plane, which should be a pretty clean gray, and the blue in the sky is blue, and the clouds are also a white to gray color. This looks like proper color to me, where the image on the left obviously has too much yellow. So now I'll make my final choice by clicking on the right-hand image. And now you notice the screen bottom has changed, and we're what's called fine-tune mode. The image on the left is now our original image, and the image on the right is the results from the wizard. You can tell this by looking at the pop-ups at the bottom, where it tells us View Original and View Current. If you like the results you have at this point, just go ahead and press the Apply button to return the results to Photoshop or Photoshop Elements. Most of the time, this is all you need. If you'd like to make further adjustments, you can use the fine-tune controls at the bottom. We'll show you how to use those in the next chapter. You've successfully adjusted the brightness, contrast, and removed the color cast from your image without knowing anything about color correction or any of the different 8 dialogues in Photoshop.